time here in the Midwest. It's Central Standard Time. So I appreciate you tuning in. Click on something here real quick. So I appreciate you tuning in this morning. Today we are in day three of what leadership actually is. It's awareness and presence. So we are on day three of this particular series this week. And today we're going to talk about accountability in action. How consistent leadership creates predictable performance. Jump into slide one here. What accountability breaks down? Leaders assume expectations were understood. Follow through is inconsistent. Issues go unaddressed until they become emotional. And accountability is treated as correction, not alignment. So let's break those down here real quick. A lot of times, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, that leaders don't always provide the greatest expectations, or they don't communicate their expectations very well. They have the expectations in their head, they know what they want to accomplish, but they don't do very good at actually communicating those. Because what happens in a lot of cases is they don't communicate the expectations clearly because they're already anticipating problems, right? So they already are anticipating things that are going to happen. Welcome in, Tony J. Appreciate it. So they're already having an idea of what may be happening going forward. So they don't necessarily then give all the expectations that they have in their mind, and then the follow through is inconsistent. So now let's say they do give you all the expectations, right? But now their follow through is very inconsistent. And why that is because they feel like they went ahead and presented you with all of their expectations when in fact they did not. So therefore, they don't feel as if they need to follow through because you should already know what the path is. When in fact, you don't, because your leader or boss did not communicate their actual expectations. And so when they're not following through with those expectations, then now the job is one, is not going to get completed, or two, it may get completed but doesn't meet any of the leader's expectations. So what happens then is issues then go unaddressed until they become emotional. So what happens? A leader comes in. I'm not going to say a leader, because a leader doesn't assume all the expectations were given. A boss or a micromanager will come in, give you some expectations, but leave a lot of the expectations out. They don't communicate them. They don't follow through with the job at hand. And then what happens is issues are then created. And now that boss or manager or micromanager becomes very emotional. So then now accountability is treated as a correction and not true alignment. So what happens in a lot of cases is boss comes in, barks out the orders, gives you a few of the expectations, doesn't give you all the expectations, and then the ones that they didn't give you, you are left to just make your own decision on it. And then their follow through is very inconsistent. And then the expectations that the employees are left to just guess about are now are creating issues. They then go unaddressed. So now here comes the boss and the micromanager storming back in the door because the job that he had formed in his or her head is not getting completed correctly. So therefore, now emotions come in and accountability is now treated as a correction and not true alignment. That is a very common scenario that happens in a lot of businesses. Because now, if a true leader comes in, a leader is going to come in and they're going to give you the expectations. They're going to line out the expectations. And let's say if they inadvertently miss one of those expectations, their follow through is consistent. So therefore, they will pick up on one of the expectations that they forgot to communicate. So now we are working cohesively. None of the issues go unaddressed. And when we get to the end of the job task, now that leader can come in and hold everybody accountable for either a great job, or we need to realign some things and we need to make some changes to bring in the actual task and it's completed. So when we break down that, that's what happens in a lot of cases. Now, accountability is not an event. It's not. It's not a meeting. It's not a write-up. It's not a reaction. Accountability is the daily rhythm of leadership, right? If you have small and consistent conversations with your, I guess, employee and employer alike, if you are having consistent conversations with your team leader and your team members, accountability becomes the daily rhythm of it, right? Because what happens in a lot of cases, bosses and micromanagers will not come out and work with the team. They won't become cohesive with that team. They will avoid it as much as they possibly can. So, real quick, before I continue to go on here, let me identify here when I'm talking about bosses versus micromanagers, or bosses and micromanagers versus leaders. I'm very adamant about grouping them separately because bosses and micromanagers come in and they are the ones that will bark orders. They will use accountability as a correction and as a form of discipline, but they don't ever use it as constructive because they don't know how. A true leader understands that accountability is just the daily rhythm of leadership. Now, when we're out here, for example, if I'm out here working with my team and I have laid out all the expectations, I am continually following through. But if we have a certain individual or somebody that's on the team that may not necessarily be, is not understanding what is going on, then we can sit there and hold them accountable in a constructive manner, not in a manner that is going to be considered as discipline. Give me 1 second here. It's saying it can't hear me. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Okay, we're good. So the accountability pieces of it become not rhythm, they become disciplinary. And we don't want that because accountability is a good thing. Because if we're not using accountability the correct way, we are going to have a lot of missed pieces in all the job tasks at hand. For example, in an automotive repair shop, accountability is very, very important because not only are you are working on a person's vehicle, but you are providing safety for that person that drives that vehicle and anybody that rides with them. So if our shop foremans and our advisors or service managers aren't continually holding our techs accountable for the work that they're doing, things will go get missed. Not purposely, but inadvertently. So what happens in a lot of cases in the repair shop environment, service managers and shop foremen start misconstruing accountability for discipline versus rhythm and alignment. It's basically making sure all the checks and balances are in place because God forbid that person leaves, gets out on the interstate, they have their loved ones in there, something goes awry, and they not only take out their vehicle, but they take out 3 or 4 other vehicles. So if our shop foreman and service advisor wasn't holding the tech accountable then the worst scenario could happen. And that's the same goes with the service advisor. Now, a service advisor needs to do their job properly and ask the right questions to understand what is going on with that vehicle. So many times when I'm in repair shops, a customer will come in and the service advisor has their listed questions that they ask. And that's it. And they won't deviate from that. So what happens is they're not understanding the what do you want to say the rule of conversation, and they're not identifying some of the true pieces to be asking the right questions. So so if the service advisor is not asking the right questions, they're not getting the right diagnostic questions down correctly. And then what happens is it goes back to the service manager and the shop foreman. They dispatch the work. The tech does the work that was provided or was presented to him by the service advisor. And if we're not having our checks and balances in place, the actual issue may totally go missed because one, we're not holding everybody accountable. Two, the service advisor didn't ask the right questions. And three, nobody wanted to step out of their lane to really identify the true problem. So that's why accountability must be considered rhythm of leadership. It has to be rhythm. It cannot be used as a disciplinary factor. Because as soon as you do that, you are going to lose your employees left and right. So then what happens? We create a trust loop, right? If we have clear expectations, we have consistent follow-up, and we have honest feedback. Oh, that probably one of the most important pieces of this. We have reinforcement or correction, and then repeat. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. It's so simple that it's mind-boggling that this system is so simple, but so many people fail at it. And it's hard to understand. But I think if leaders would grasp this form, we can eliminate a lot of the issues that I spoke about in the previous slides. So a true leader comes in, they set clear expectations. They consistently follow up, and they give honest feedback. Now, why I emphasize honest feedback so much is because what has happened, and I have seen it time and time again. Let's say you have a tech, right? And he or she is a very good tech. But the tech is at the very end of the shop. Why do you suppose that is? It's because that person may want to just work by themselves, or they're put at the end of the shop because nobody wants to deal with them. And that's unfortunate. And that's why honest feedback is so extremely important, especially to those types of individuals. Because, for example, and I used this on a video previous, but if you have a person that is just confrontational, right? Or they're an introvert, what happens in a lot of cases is people will just go and just agree whatever that individual says because they don't want to deal with anything that may come after. Well, that is the biggest mistake any person can make, because what happens is our fear of the confrontational side of things will now put that individual into a false reality. For example, let's say that tech is at the very end of the shop. We go down and we talk to that tech. And that tech says the sky is purple, the sky is purple, the sky is purple. So to avoid confrontation and to get into an argument, we're just going to agree and say, yeah, the sky is purple. When in fact, the sky is blue. So it's very important that we tell them the sky is blue, especially in automotive repair, because I don't know how serious a lot of people in the automotive repair shops take their individual role because they have the safety of a family in the palm of their hands when they are working on a customer's vehicle. Now, if we skip steps, if we do it half-assed, if we just let that individual live in a world of false reality, that person could go make a major mistake. And for our fear of holding that person accountable could lead to a family of 5 being killed out on the interstate or losing or being unalived. And that's very, very unfortunate. And we do not want that to ever happen. So if we use accountability as true rhythm and constructively, we can have a cohesive shop working together, and not everybody is against each other. Because again, and I've repeated this time and time again, especially in this episode, accountability is not discipline. Accountability is not to hold somebody in trouble. It's not to reprimand anybody. Accountability is to create rhythm within your shop or within your workplace. Now, your job as a leader, okay? Your job as a leader is to set expectations clearly, to inspect what you expect, 3, address issues early, 4, coach before you correct, and 5, model the standards you enforce. Okay? I'm going to emphasize on 2, 3, and 4. 2, inspect what you expect. So, what that means, if you are setting expectations for your employees, make sure that you are following through and expecting the work. Now, don't do it to where it's so much like you're over their shoulder and you're micromanaging them. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to make sure that 1, they understood the task, or 2, on the other side of it, maybe as a leader, the expectations that you put forth were incorrect on your side. So if you're continually inspecting those, you could probably avoid a lot of those issues. Address issues early. That's common sense. We should all practice that. But here's another piece. Coach before you correct. This is the part that separates a boss / micromanager versus a true leader. Now, I'm sure we could very easily know what piece of this statement a boss and micromanager will do. They will correct. They won't coach. They'll just correct. They'll just go in and say, you've done this wrong. This is incorrect. This is how you need to do it. And then they will stand over your shoulder the whole time, watching you, making sure that you are doing each step precisely to their liking. However, flip side, if you're a leader and you go in there and you are seeing what they are working on and you're seeing there could be a potential issue on the horizon, coach them. Ask them questions. Say, Mr. or Mrs. Mechanic, if you continue to do it that way, what do you suppose is going to happen? Right? Bring them into the conversation. Don't just tell them what to do. Coach them. Some of your most prolific coaches over the years, John Wooden, Vince Lombardi, I mean, there's a lot of them. Roy Williams, Bill Self. I mean, as you can see, I'm a KU fan. These coaches is exactly what they do. They coach through situations. They don't just bark out the orders. They coach through. And then lastly, model the standards you enforce. Because nothing is worse than having a boss or micromanager come out, ride your butt, and then they go in and do the exact same thing that you were just doing. That is the worst. So, if you're going to be a leader and you set the standards for your team, model those standards. Walk the walk and talk the talk. Hi, Carson, welcome in. Hi, Andrew, welcome in. If you guys like what you hear, please click that follow button. I'm live every day at 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. This is the Business Mechanic. Just got started here in the last couple weeks, so your support would be greatly appreciated. Now, model the standards you enforce. And if you want to be a leader, what is the root definition to a leader? Leaders have followers. And if you're not modeling the standards that you are enforcing and leading with, nobody's going to follow you. Nobody. So then what happens is now you become a boss slash micromanager and you're out on this island all by yourself. So again, your job as a leader is to set expectations clearly, inspect what you expect, address issues early, coach before you correct, and model the standards you enforce. So important. Now, why accountability creates trust? And again, I'm going to repeat this. Accountability is not punishment. Accountability is not to be used as discipline. Accountability is to be used to keep the rhythm amongst your team and everybody is working cohesively. That's the whole point of accountability. And good leaders use accountability to the right way. Bosses and micromanagers, they don't know how to use accountability. They don't. They will use accountability to correct and to hold you under their thumb. And they will reprimand you and discipline you. And so then what happens at that point is now, if you're a boss slash micromanager, you've lost all the trust of your employees because you're more worried about correcting and disciplining them versus actually coaching them and being a true leader. And so many micromanagers and bosses, they miss that piece of it to become very good leaders. And then on the flip side of that, and I'll get back into what I'm talking about here, is a lot of bosses and micromanagers, what happens is they'll come in and then they will see a lot of people standing around. And then they ask themselves, why is everybody standing around? Why is everybody standing around? It's because you have micromanaged those people to such a point that they don't know or they have fear to work on their own. Because as soon as they go work on their own, you are going to come back on the other side, hold them accountable, and discipline them. So instead of thinking on their own, they're just going to stand around and wait for exact directions from you. And then on top of that, if that micromanager slash boss is not communicating the right expectations, all HE double hockey sticks break loose. So true leaders know how to work accountability. People trust what is predictable. Consistency eliminates fear. Clear expectations reduce conflict. Follow through creates safety. And accountability shows you care about performance and people. Let me repeat that. Accountability shows you care about performance and people. That's how we use accountability. Accountability is there to work rhythm into a team of individuals. If you have a task that's in front of you and you come in and you just bark out your expectations and then you go away and you didn't communicate the expectations correctly, safety goes out the window. Job performance goes in the tank, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So true leaders understand how to hold people accountable. And then on side of that, then comes trust. If you want to build a team that is long lasting, trust has to be the key part of that. When you're job hunting and you're looking for a job, one thing that I would ask is, what is your turnover? Because places of business with high turnover rates don't have any of this on the screen. They don't have trust, they don't have leadership, they don't have none of that. Right? What they have are bosses and micromanagers that's creating turnover for their shops. So be sure you ask that question if you're interviewing with a shop. So 3 accountability conversations, right? Here are some ways to communicate with your team members so they understand that you are actually using accountability as a rhythm piece to build the cohesiveness inside of your team. Alignment conversation. Here's what good looks like. Check-in conversations. Show me where you are. Correction conversations. Let's fix this together. I emphasize the word together because a true leader is also a great follower. They understand that they have been in your position before, so they are able to easily, communicate with you because they've been in that position before. Alignment conversation. Here's what good looks like, right? So let's say you have put together a task, right? You have 5 individuals. You've laid out all the expectations. You are continuing with your follow-up. You are being consistent with everything. So if you want to keep accountability as alignment, you can go and very easily say, okay, we're on day 3 of this. Here's what good looks like for day 4. And you can start mapping out what day 4 would look like, because in day 3, you have noticed as a leader, there's some holes in what they're creating. So therefore, you now take that conversation and you make it into alignment. And now you can say, here's what good looks like. And you can hold them accountable and also give them the path for the next day. Another example, you have a team of 5 people building a product or reaching a task. Check-in is very, very important. Excuse me, I need a drink. Understand that you are checking in, not checking on. Understand the difference. Understand the difference between checking in and checking on somebody. Checking in is you are bringing yourself into it and you want to be shown where they are at. Okay? So therefore, you two can work together to either correct it, make it better, or status quo. Now, checking on is somebody that comes in and says, hey, when are you going to finish that? Hey, how come you haven't finished that yet? Do I need to get involved? Those are checking on conversations. Checking in conversations is, hey, show me where you're at. Hey, what can I do to help you today? Where am I needed to be to the next step? Et cetera, et cetera. Correction conversations, right? Micromanager and a boss comes in and says, I'm just going to do it myself, right? Or did you not understand the directions? Or why didn't you do it this way? So a micromanager has to have steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 done exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. A leader understands that maybe 3 needs to come in front of 2, because the person that's actually doing the job is the one that knows probably what the proper pieces are to put together. So if you go in and you're checking in on your team or checking in with your team and you're like, hey, I see that we're here. Let's start working on this together so tomorrow we know what it's going to look like, because here's what good looks like for tomorrow. See how that all kind of works together? Because most leaders, I shouldn't say most leaders, but most bosses slash micromanagers will skip the first two and then wonder why the third one feels so hard, right? So if you don't have any alignment conversations with your team, and if you don't have any check-in conversations with your team, when you need to come in and try to correct something and work for a better solution, you're not going to achieve that. Because everybody is either going to clam up and they're not going to communicate, or they're just going to say, I'm going to withdraw myself from this situation or from this job task because the boss slash micromanager that I have right now missed the two pieces of this slide. So again, understanding these three questions, right, is alignment conversations is here's what good looks like. Check in, not check on. Show me where you are. And then 3, correction conversations. Let's fix this together. Let me see that again. Let's fix this together. All right, moving on. Now, with all of that said, as a reminder, this live is recorded, and you will be able to see it on my YouTube channel, The Business Mechanic, right up there. So if you missed today and there's anything that you want to come back and revisit, by all means, this will be edited and downloaded to my YouTube channel probably right after lunch. And we're on Central Standard Time, and right now it's 11:30. Okay. So with everything I said in the previous slides, in the previous 6 slides, where leaders go wrong is these pieces right here. This is where it's going to, hey Dustin, thanks for coming in. This is where it's going to separate leaders from micromanagers, or micromanagers from being an actual leader. 1, waiting too long to address issues. 2, assuming people should know better, right? How many times have you heard, well, that's just common sense, or you should have known that? Well, your rebuttal should be, well, if I should have just known that, do you think I wouldn't have done that? Right? So being inconsistent with follow-up. Follow-up is just so important with so many different pieces of business as a whole, especially in automotive repair shops. Follow-up, for whatever reason, is so hard for so many people. Even if you're working on an individual's vehicle and you haven't found any issues with it yet, so many people feel like, well, if I've got nothing to report, I'm not going to report it. No, that person that's on the other side waiting to hear from you needs to know that you are still actively working on the vehicle and you're still actively thinking about that customer. And I tell service advisors all the time, put yourself into your customer's shoes. This is your vehicle, right? It is your main source of transportation. And you have a big job duty for the next 2 days that you must have transportation. So you're sitting on pins and needles all day long, wanting to know what is going on with your car. You drop the car at 8 o'clock in the morning. It is now 5:30, and they finally call and say, hey, we still haven't fixed. Are you kidding me? Are you telling me that you did not know this 8 hours ago? So I went off on a tangent there. Another piece, avoiding discomfort. And then confusing accountability with punishment. I'm sure that you're starting to understand what the theme is here. And the theme is confusing accountability with punishment. Waiting too long to address issues. Now, this one is very important because bosses, and not so much micromanagers, but ineffective managers, they won't address issues because they're hoping that the issue is going to fix itself. Well, what I've told people for years is hope is not a business strategy. Hope is not a strategy whatsoever. So, hoping an issue is just going to take care of itself usually proceeds into a bigger issue. So, if you want to be an effective, strong leader, address issues right away. Don't assume people should know better. It's one of the most ineffective statements I have ever heard. Because, like I said a few minutes ago, if you knew better and common sense tells you should have just done it that way, 9 times out of 10, if the person did know better, they would have done it that way. Avoiding or being inconsistent with follow up. Just talked about that. Avoiding discomfort. Man, I get it. Not everybody is built for conflict and confrontation. I understand that wholeheartedly. And what I'm trying to teach here is if you address a lot of these issues immediately, you're not going to have any discomfort to avoid. Let me say that again. The quicker that you address issues, and if you're holding people accountable to build a rhythm, discomfort is not going to happen. One thing with me, and I've been in the automotive industry now 31 years. And I've been in leadership roles for 27 of those 31. And I will tell you, probably on one hand, how many uncomfortable conversations I had with people in the workplace. Now, I've had numerous of them when I've had to release people. Those aren't always the fun ones to have, especially if they're layoffs and it's nothing that the individual did. But if you follow everything that I've been teaching you this week and for the next couple days, you won't have hardly any discomfort that you're one going to deal with, and two that you will ever have to worry about. And then the last one there, number 5, confusing accountability with punishment. I think I've beat that statement enough today. So here are some questions to ask for leaders. Okay. And I'll give you a little bit to write these down if you so desire. And again, if you don't catch today's episode, by all means, go ahead and click into my YouTube channel. And I will also have daily excerpts that will be downloaded to my TikTok channel. Do I follow up as consistently as I think I do? What I would do here is I would start keeping a notepad of when you follow up. And if you don't follow up more than X amount of times, what I would do is I would set your goal that you want, depending on the job task and how intricate that job task is. Set a goal of how many times you want to follow up. And then meet that goal, and then make sure you write notes on each time that you followed up, because nothing's worse than following up but not listening. Does that make sense? Because if you go in to follow up just to follow up, but then you come back 20 minutes later and you're saying the same thing because you didn't listen prior, see the issue? 2, do I avoid small conversations until they become big ones? I can be guilty of this one. And I've worked on this over the years to make sure that I'm not avoiding small conversations. 3, do I hold myself to the same standards I expect from others? True leaders are going to hold themselves to a higher standard than what they expect from others. So if you're not even holding yourself accountable to even the standards of your employees, then we probably need to have another conversation. And last, do my people / team members know exactly what good looks like? When I would have weekly meetings with my teams, we would have these conversations. What is acceptable, which is good? What is great, and what is a pipe dream? And what does that look like? So we would all work very hard and very diligently. Hi, Melissa. Thanks for coming in. To work and get to those stages. Okay. Again, diagnostic questions for leaders to ask yourselves. Again, if you missed these, tune into my YouTube channel this afternoon, and this video will be edited and on that page. Okay. Every day I like to set a challenge. So leadership challenges for today is as follows. Choose one person today and have a simple accountability conversation. Alignment, check-in, or correction as the reasoning for the conversation. Okay? Now remember what we talked about today. We talked about accountability is made to create a cohesive group of individuals. It is to maintain the rhythm, and it is maintained to keep everybody positive and motivated to reach the goal. Accountability is not discipline. Accountability is not punishment. Accountability is to create rhythm and cohesiveness. Very, very important, because communication plus accountability equals trust. And in order to be an effective leader, you must have the trust of your team. If your team does not trust you, you need to revisit you, not the team, you. So, for tomorrow, day 4. We're going to talk about coaching versus micromanagement. I started to touch a little bit on that today about what the differences are, but tomorrow I'm going to break this down, and we're really going to go into what the differences are between micromanagement and actual coaching. Now, in closing, reflecting from today. Now, one of the things is to be a great leader, you have to be a good follower as well. Leadership is a very, very important role because you're the one that is going to take the responsibility for all of your team. You're the one that upper management is going to look at to be the one that's going to be the conversational, the one that's going to be talking about what tasks everybody's accomplished. And you're accountable for everything that is happening with the individuals that are below you. And leaders are individuals that are calm by nature. They're very approachable. They're easy to talk to. But when things get tough, they're the ones that everybody's going to fall in behind, because they're the ones that are able to shift and take on that leadership role and lead their team to the victory that they need to get to. Now, bosses and micromanagers, what they do is they just sit on the side and they follow the team beside, right? And then if somebody gets in trouble, the boss and the micromanager is going to shift that punishment to the individual, right? So they're going to work side and side. A leader goes in front. A leader takes the responsibility for everybody that's back here. And if somebody back here gets in trouble or has done something that they shouldn't have, the leader is going to take that. They are going to be responsible for that. And then they are going to come back and then they are going to coach that individual so it does not repeat itself. Very important. And that is a true distinction between a leader and a micromanager. So, we're just now here at 48 minutes. I appreciate everybody that has tuned in. As a reminder, this video and this show will be on my YouTube channel after lunch, edited. So, tune in tomorrow at 11 a.m. Tune in tonight at 7 p.m. This will just be a retake of what we talked about today. And then anything else, if you have any questions, by all means, you can DM me. We can share email addresses, and then we can have a sidebar conversation if needed. Again, thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. Be kind, and let's get to work. Talk to you all soon.